you're in the weeds and you can't get out. Like you are paralyzed. Okay. I thought we could have a little fun today. Well, maybe overwhelm is not fun to some people, but I wanted to do today's episode a little bit different, where this is something that I hear a lot from women in my community when the season shifts, which means the structure might shift, the roles and responsibilities might shift, and it can feel heavy. It can feel like a lot of stress, which could lead to overwhelm. So if you are a mom watching this episode right now, and whether you are the CEO of the household, so you are at home full time, or you work full time and you work from home, or you go to the office and you work full time, it doesn't matter. If you are a mom who is watching me, who has a demanding schedule, and now the kids are home for summer and you have the additional stressor of figuring out a new schedule for them, maybe it's carpools to camp, maybe it's keeping them occupied during the summer, it can feel like a lot of overwhelm. It can feel like what you knew to be true before the season of summer and the schedule change. It felt routine. It felt easy. It felt like you had a handle on it. It felt more peaceful. And now all of a sudden you roll into summer and it feels chaotic again. And summer is the season and we want to feel more relaxed. We want to feel more at peace. We want to feel like we can enjoy those summer nights. And if overwhelm interferes with that, we might stop our health and fitness, which a lot of you I know work so hard to get to a certain place for summer. You might stop enjoying your children being home in the way that you maybe saw yourself enjoying them, and you might miss out on the fun. And so I want to show you today do a little mini training like I would do inside of the Angie method in my coaching group. And we call it turning overwhelm into momentum. Because have you ever felt something that was in momentum? Think about anything. Maybe you felt in momentum with your job and you were like crushing a new project. Maybe you felt in momentum with your health and fitness before. Maybe you felt in momentum with something to do with the household and maybe a new project you were doing at home, building a new home, whatever it is. But you're like, wow, being in momentum feels good, right? It's exciting. It feels energizing. You feel like you're unstoppable. You feel powerful. You feel confident. You feel like you could do anything. The feeling of momentum, I like to say, let's ride Big Mo all the time and find different areas of our life that we can be in momentum with, and then be okay with letting go of areas that we can't be. Because when we're in momentum, it just feels good. Feels a lot different than overwhelm. And so what is overwhelm? We need to define it first. I feel like if you follow any of Brene Brown's stuff, she does a beautiful description of overwhelm being different than stress. So you have to decide, are you actually feeling stress or is this really overwhelm? Overwhelm most commonly means to cause to be overcome with emotion as a result of an amount of something, work, stress, that's just too much to handle. And Brene Brown explains the difference is like, you're in the weeds and you can't get out. Like you are paralyzed by this overcoming emotion that does not allow you to do things that are resourceful, things that you want to do. Stress, we can still operate with stress, right? We can still do a lot of things that we want to do. Overwhelm, it feels dark. It feels like there's nowhere else you can go but be by yourself because you are in the weeds. So you have to get clear first. Is it overwhelm or is it stress? That's the first thing we need to recognize. Can you function still with a lot to do? Or do you need a break from life? Like, what is the current thing that you're feeling? If you're like, I got to check out of life, like I'm tapping out, I can't do this anymore, that might truly be overwhelmed. If you're like, oh my God, I need a break, but like, I'll keep showing up. I'll keep doing these things with my career, with my family, with my kids, with my health and fitness. You just might feel a little bit stressed. So get clear as to what you're feeling first, because it is different. So I want to share a recent story about a client that we have in the program when it comes to overwhelm. I feel like painting a picture with a story is easier to understand. Okay, this is how I'm actually feeling, or maybe I'm just using the word overwhelm, but there is an easy solution to come out of the overwhelm and into momentum. So when you come into our program, like anything that you are looking to become better in, there's a learning curve, right? We don't just know every skill set when you start a new job. when you become a parent. I love using the example of a parent. Do you know everything when you're a parent? Like, I'm pretty sure when they sent home newborn babies with me that were 4 pounds, I didn't know what I was doing. No book could prepare me. No advice I got from another mom could prepare me. I just had to get into it in a stressful environment, right? You're not sleeping. You're up feeding babies or a baby. You're learning all these new things that you've never had to do before. Your life is totally different. Your responsibilities are different. Your time availability is different. But you get in it in a stressful situation, which may actually lead to overwhelm, but you learn the things you have to learn to become confident in knowing I can protect and care for this human, right? You just do it because you have to. And so when you come into our program, a lot of health and fitness things we're just not focusing on that are going to help us to feel more at peace with our health and fitness. They're going to help us get results. That are going to help us sustain results. So this client came into our world. And there are different skills for each individual that will best serve them. And if they can become competent in these skills, they become more confident in the execution of their everyday nutrition and fitness plan. And I remember this individual coming to me and they're like, I am so overwhelmed with the process that I think I need to quit. And I was like, okay, what exactly are you overwhelmed by? And they're like, well, I have this going on with the kids' activities, and I'm trying to fit in a time in my actual routine to do my meal prep. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I start to understand like these different foods that I'm eating? Because yes, there's an educational piece, because the more knowledge we have, the more we can take that knowledge and apply it towards the actions that are going to get the results of the person we want to be. And so they were overwhelmed by the idea of meal prep. They were overwhelmed by the idea of trying to eat at a certain time. They were overwhelmed by the idea of their workout having to be a perfectly set up workout, getting every single rep in, doing every single exercise. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, when did you decide that? When did you decide meal prep had to look like that? And so we got a little deeper into this, and they're like, well, every plan I've done before, you had to have all your meals ready to go in containers, like little containers, and meals ready, 21 meals in a week. And I'm like, okay, what if we chose to look at meal prep slightly different? What if we looked at it like this? Would that reduce your overwhelm? And they're like, oh, wow, that's easy. And I was like, that's easy, right? See, we do things because of what we've known to be true before, and that might create extra stress and overwhelm in our life. So we were asking them to come in and do different skills, learn different skills, watch different trainings. And because they were trying to do it like the old version of themselves, who was stuck in the vicious cycle of dieting, who was stuck in the all or nothing mentality, who was stuck in that's possible for somebody else, but not someone like me with my kind of schedule, they were operating from that old self. So we start to operate from this new self of like, hey, let's ask like that person you want to be, who feels more at peace with their health and fitness, who gets the results in an enjoyable way. Like, do they operate from overwhelm? Do they operate from the fear of messing up? And they're like, oh, I guess not, right? What they actually do is they decide what is the easiest skill and strategy I can learn right now to seamlessly fit it into my life, so my life doesn't feel like I have to turn it upside down. I don't know about you, but I don't have the time or the desire to make 21 meals in containers on a Sunday. I want to spend that time with my family. So they thought that's what they had to do to be successful in my program. And I'm like, no, we only do the things and learn the skills that make you successful in your own life, with your own demands, with your own preferences and your own goals. So they had created the story. They had to do that. And I was like, wow, that is literally paralyzing you by thinking you have to do it that way. Let's do it in a way that fits into your lifestyle. Yes, there might be a little bit of discomfort when there's a learning curve, just like there's a discomfort when you're a new parent and you're learning, like, how do I navigate life with little sleep? How do I feed this baby? How do I change this baby? How do I soothe this baby? There's discomfort when you're learning a new skill, but once you have it, you're right back in momentum, feeling good, feeling in control, feeling at peace. So all we had to do was identify what were you fearing? What was the story you created that it had to be this way that was causing you the overwhelm and the stress? Then we'll learn the skill and then we move on. And so we ask different questions to get clear, and then we can do the right thing for that individual. So the problem with the overwhelm mentality, it can lead to dramatizing a situation, just like dramatizing the way meal prep had to be, which leads to impulsive reactive behavior. So for this person, then they just weren't meal prepping at all because they thought it had to be this big grand way of doing it. And then they were losing out on getting results easily if they would have just prepped in a way that best served them. They result back to old behaviors. I'll go do convenience eating. I'll go through the drive-through. Oh, I don't have time to meal prep. Oh, I don't have time to eat healthy, which really they just had to figure out the amount of time they did have and build a strategy with that in mind. You resort to old behaviors. You start operating again from that person who was before, who wasn't getting the results. The paralysis by analysis, that's exactly what they were experiencing because they were so paralyzed by the idea of all the things that they thought they had to do to be healthy and fit. They were just doing nothing at all, sitting in their overwhelm. Or they do things that don't actually move the needle and they waste time. Like you do not have to literally make 21 meals to get results. You just have to know how much you're eating and you have to hit a certain protein goal, and then you can prep it in whatever way best serves you. You could buy every single meal from a meal prep service. You could buy every single meal from a restaurant out as long as it just fits in the parameters of what gets you the fat loss results you want. And then the even bigger problem that I see with overwhelm, you end up negatively impacting others with your overwhelm. So this particular mom that came into my program, she was like, and I'm overwhelmed because I have this going on with my work and this going on in home. And I'm trying to do all of these new skills. Remember, skills that really weren't in alignment with her goal anyway. It was something that she had learned before that she was still operating from. And she was like, I'm just yelling at everyone. Like I was already yelling and I'm still yelling. And then anxious tendencies tend to creep in. More worry, more fear, which carries over to those people in your life. They're like, wow, if mom's worried, I should be worried. If she's anxious, I should be anxious. Or you start isolating yourself, right? Overwhelm leads to all of that. And there's an easier way. There's an easier solution to this. You can turn overwhelm into momentum with simple, easy to execute steps. So for this individual, the only step we focused on was first, what is causing my overwhelm? And these are just some examples. You can read them on the screen. For her, she was like, I want to make meal prep easy. I can't be spending hours on a Sunday when I want to spend it with my family, or I want to tidy the home, or I want to prep for our work week or for the school week or whatever it was. So the idea for her, and we're talking health and fitness, the idea of meal prep and what she thought it needed to look like was causing the overwhelm. Great. What do you want instead? So we decide what we want instead. And we decided that we just wanted foods that were readily available to make a meal in minutes with a protein focus. So I was like, could you just put your energy and time into learning what a protein source is and how to either prep it with very little time or buy it prepped from a store? She was like, yes. Are you telling me that's all I have to do? I'm like, that's it. Then we'll just use a tool. We'll learn a new skill set to know how much you eat. You'll have your protein prepped. You'll have this new tool to know how much you eat. And that's the only time it would take. Boom. Overwhelm dropped, stress dropped. They felt free. She felt like, I can do this. She felt empowered. She felt confident. So she learned this skill that does take time. But once she had it, now she's on autopilot. Now there is no mental bandwidth being spent towards her meal prep, and food is always readily available to hit her goals. And so what's causing your overwhelm? I should take a shot to reduce weight. I need to exercise 7 days a week. I can't socialize. I'm frustrated by the amount of time it'll take me to do these things, times I don't have. Other people that come into our world are like, I don't like the body and the headspace I'm in. That's causing me overwhelm. And now when you're overwhelmed by these, now you're overwhelmed by not loving the body that you're in and the time you don't have to spend on being healthy. So we have to identify what the overwhelm is first. And then the actionable steps, I always start with reflection questions, just like I did with this client. What is causing your overwhelm? Identify it. Like brainstorm as much as you can. You may think one thing's causing your overwhelm and it really is not that thing at all. when we got to the root of this, the meal prep wasn't causing, the idea of meal prep or what she thought it to be true wasn't causing any overwhelm at all. It was actually all the other roles and responsibilities in her life that were causing the overwhelm. And this was one more thing added to her plate now that she thought she had to do. And it was time she didn't have. And so once we were like, okay, we've identified it, it's actually, you feel spread too thin in other areas of our life. So what can we do instead? Let's make meal prep fit seamlessly into your life and have it save you time. Ah, great. That sounds really good, right? It wasn't the meal prep. It wasn't watching modules in our anti-diet course. It had everything to do with how do I fit that in with all the other stuff I have going on in my life. Then after you identify it, ask, what can I do if you can do it differently, which is what we decided to do with her meal prep? Can you learn a new skill to make it easier? So we learned the skill of identifying what a protein source is and how to prep it easily. Can you ask for support in it or omit it altogether? If it's causing you so much overwhelm, you're like, I don't even think I need to do this. Can you omit it altogether? See, she couldn't omit meal prep altogether because she needed to have foods readily available for herself and her family to make life easier. But we could ask for support. She can have it prepped at the grocery store. She can buy it pre-prepped at Costco. She can learn the new skill of how to use an air fryer or an Instant Pot. Boom, right back in alignment, right back in momentum. And then number 3, are there boundaries you could put into place to protect your energy and reduce your overwhelm? What if you just set up a boundary, right? Like that's it. And all of a sudden your energy feels more at peace and you feel like your overwhelm is coming down. So maybe you're watching this right now and you're like, I say yes all the time. Put up your boundary of no. If someone asks you to do something or do something for them and your immediate response in your head is like, wavered, the answer is no. And so your boundary for yourself can be like, if I only have so much energy in a day, mentally and physically, and someone asks me to do something right now with the season of life I'm in, and I'm incongruent with having a yes or no, just say your boundary is a no. If you don't have a full-on hell yes, it's probably a no. That in itself will reduce overwhelm. And then you just start building out habits. So for this, again, this particular client, the habit was meal prep 2 times a week, but we prepped ingredients, not meals. We switched the idea of meal prep in her head to be, I am an ingredient cook. That's what I do. I prep ingredients and then she turns them into meals in minutes. So we build out a habit. Awareness, manage your time by managing your energy. Write down how you want to feel. Energy is feeling based. So write down how you want to feel, become aware of the emotions that are opposite of that. What time they're happening in the day? What environment are you with? Who are you spending your time with? When are these emotions happening? And once you are aware of that, you create micro behaviors to get you to feel the other way. Okay. So micro behaviors with what will reduce your overwhelm. So maybe the thought of losing 50 pounds causes you overwhelm and you think it takes turning your world upside down to achieve that. And you think, well, that's going to take me a year. That's time I don't have. And I don't want to turn my world upside down for a year. So I probably won't do anything at all. But rather you're like, wait a minute, no, I can just look for an easy to execute micro behavior that may just move me closer to that outcome. If this was me coaching you 50 pounds, you could easily do that in a year and make it an enjoyable process without giving up the food and drink you love, without it being 7 days in the gym, 7 days in the gym, 2 times a day, without it taking all that much time. If this was me, I'd be like, hey, let's just learn the skill set of how much you eat and then also focus on protein and steps. Let's make it easy. Those are your micro behaviors that will reduce overwhelm. And if you just stay in momentum with those 2 things, those are what you commit to, you will never feel like you're in a chaotic state. And then you attach the micro behavior to an already existing one. So if I was asking them to get steps in as one of their micro behaviors, I'm like, hey, what is something that's routine in your day right now? And they're like, well, I always leave work at this time. I'm like, great. Could you just attach 10 minutes of walking to when you leave work before you get in the car and you go home? They're like, yeah, that's easy. Maybe they're trying to drink more water, stay hydrated. I'm like, okay, so you brush your teeth at this time in the morning. Yes. Can you commit to attaching drinking 20 ounces of water right then and there? Yeah, I can do that. Makes it easy. You're already doing a different behavior anyway. Now you're just going to habit stack, adding on something that's going to be in alignment with how you want to feel and keeping you in momentum, reducing overwhelm. So it's literally as simple as that. Identify what the overwhelm is, what's causing it. Ask if you can do it differently. Ask if you can have support in doing it. Ask if you can omit it altogether. And then ask in correlation to your goals, like, how does it make you feel? And once you know how you feel and what may be causing an unresourceful feeling, you do something different instead. And so that's it. That is what I have for today's training. Hopefully you can identify if it's overwhelm or stress, figure out what you want instead, and do things that keep you in momentum, because we know when you're in momentum, amazing things happen. So if you like today's episode, I know this was a little bit of a different one, a little bit heavier on the mindset, a little bit heavier on troubleshooting. Drop me a comment below. Let me know if you want to see more of this, or if you want more recipes or fitness. I'm here to do exactly what you ladies want from me. Okay, chat soon.